Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on MisplacedStraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today is one of the leading bass players in progressive rock. You know him best from his 2 decades plus of work with Neal Morse. But now, NMB, the Neal Morse Band, is about to release their fifth record called L.I.F.T, coming out on February 27th. Here to talk about it, please welcome Randy George. Welcome, Randy.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to have you. And, first off, were you as surprised as the rest of us that you guys were able to get back together and have another record out with Mike Portnoy going back to Dream Theater?
Well, we were certainly happy that that time came.
Mm,
We knew all along. I mean, nothing ever changed for
mm,
the Neil Morse Band. Mike first told us he was in talks with Dream Theater about rejoining, and we're all like, okay, well, we'll probably have to
mm,
work around that. And then a few months later, he told us that it's going to happen,
mm, mm,
and we knew there'd be. So we knew that it would be a sensitive rejoining
mm.
uh, of the band that he just needed to give 100% to.
Yeah.
So yeah, we nothing changed. We just knew it would be a time
Mm,
until the opportunity came. So when it did, I was certainly very happy. We
mm,
were all thrilled that we could do it and get it in because that's how it's going to have to be for a while. Just find the opportunities, do what we can when we can.
mm.
That's just the rigors of the situation. So,
So the title of the record is spelled out L-I-F-T. First of all, how did the band arrive at the title? And do each of you have a different idea of what those letters mean to you?
well, finding a name for this album was extremely tough. I think it's certainly a matter of opinion, but we went through 50, 60 possibilities. We were, looking it up left and right. We were throwing different uh, descriptions of the album to Chat GBT to see what it would come up with. And it was just ridiculous. There was, I mean, it was coming up with all these one word names,
Yeah.
and Neil really wanted it to be a one word
Mm.
title, not a, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think after literally months of emails and texts and throwing
Mm.
lists of possibilities back and forth, I don't know. Neil I think we just got tired of dealing with it
Mhm.
and just got to that point where you don't care anymore. So Neil came up with this. Hey guys, I had this idea. What about Lyft? But like spell it as an acronym, you know.
Mhm.
And I forget the description, the four words he used when he threw it out there. It was funny. He wasn't saying it should be that. He was just saying something like
Yeah.
this, and uh, it was funny. So, we just sort of decided it would be left open-ended and we wouldn't really pin it down to any particular set of words. It can
Mhm.
be whatever you want it to be, I guess. That was the whole idea. I can certainly give you ones that I've thought of that are just kind of funny, but
Yeah.
the people will come up with their own.
Mm.
It's funny. I just always like to say it's life and fun times. So that's yeah, that was always my joke about it. But
Well, it's funny because I think that perfectly sums up this band for me personally, in that, and I've talked about this with Neil, when you look at the lyrics of any NMB record, yeah, there's usually a story there, but they are open enough where the listener could find themselves in the story, and everyone kind of sees it from a different angle. So as soon as I saw this title and read that you guys were saying that, well, yeah, we're not going to tell you what this stands for, to me, that's exactly what this band is because everything means something personal to whoever the listener is.
Yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to happen.
Mhm.
Um, at least halfway, and then, the other half is what actually did happen. And
Yeah.
that's all, that's what every album is,
Yeah.
combination of what you go in prepared to do
Yeah.
and what you actually end up doing.
Yeah. So the last record, Innocent in Danger, was not a full concept record. It had the two huge epics and some shorter songs. For this record, did you guys go in with a story in place, with an idea in place, or did it just kind of develop as you were putting the whole thing together?
Well, we didn't really go in with a plan other than to just get together and see what happens. Now, of course, Bill and I and uh, sometimes Eric will put together like little demo snippets of ideas and things that could be used like building blocks to things. And we find that that has always worked best in terms of Neal and Mike engaging in it, and then we build off of those kind of things. But that's just kind of strictly musical. The other side of it was, well, we went in and we knew we wanted to make it a concept album and try to keep it to one CD. And so we definitely spent a little time thinking about, what the concept would be. And Neal put together an outline one night, and I guess he got inspired and he outlined the concept in terms of like a little paragraph describing what's happening in each song to take you through this story arc. Yeah. And so writing to that made a big difference because now you kind of have a target in mind.
Mhm.
And
Well,
so and that way you know how to shape the music.
and that's exactly where I was going to go next is do you need to sort of have that story arc in place so that you could take the ebbs and flows of the music along with the journey of the
Yeah.
story?
Well, when doing a concept album, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You've probably played bass alongside Mike Portnoy more than any other bass player has with all of the stuff you guys have done together with Neal. What is
Well,
it
one of them anyway.
Yeah. What is it about the chemistry that you guys have as a rhythm section that works when it comes to this type of music?
We all speak the same language.
Mhm.
Um, I've learned that when you're doing progressive music, you have every instrument filling a small bit of space, and it adds up. Bass is very busy, drums are very busy. Not everybody kind of, not everybody can find a song in all of that.
Mhm.
And so Neal is one of those people who can, he can find a song, or Bill or Eric. We're those kind of musicians. I guess we're all those kind of musicians where we can always uh, find the song in an idea, or find an idea, in the song uh, that you can build off of. And we all see from different perspectives as a whole, not so much. I mean, each guy's focused on his instrument, but each guy's brain understands what all the instruments are
Mhm.
doing, and where they're coming from. And it helps to, again, it helps to shape the music when you can discuss things in ideas like, oh yeah, the bass, you should kind of, I mean, do this through this section on the bass, try like, this kind of pattern, or really kind of max it out right here, or you know, different descriptions that someone else who wrote the piece or seems to be driving the piece at the moment, and they'll have ideas for everybody, and then we also respond back and forth saying, well, where should we go next? And I'd be like, oh, I think next this needs to be like Bill's Severance theme, and
Mhm.
but we need to do rock it out and do it real heavy, and uh maybe do the guitar solo right there, and uh, that kind of thing. And it's like you got all your building blocks on the floor, like a bunch of kids sitting around on the floor playing with building blocks. Each guy's kind of building their own bit, but somehow, you're all building something together. And so, yeah, so it's like, hey, man, I got a piece for this, you know, and you end up building a song. It's
Well,
just how you do it.
go back to something you mentioned in there because to me, I think it's the most important part is finding the song in those parts. I mean, there are so many great musicians who put out great records, but you listen to them and there's no song. The music just kind of goes. But I think the talent of the five of you together, it, it it for me as a listener, it's almost like you don't hear ego in these records. If somebody needs to step back to let someone else come forward for the sake of the song, you hear that. And I think that's what really drives the Neal Morse Band as a listener is there's a song there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Neil's an exceptionally gifted songwriter. There's something in the symmetry of what he does that people connect with, um, on an emotional level. The term I've heard over the years more than anything is healing. There's a
Yeah,
lot of healing in Neil's music.
100%,
Uh,
especially this record. Yeah.
yeah. And if that's not your thing, it's not your thing. But it's all about whoever shall hear, you know,
Mhm.
listen and you'll hear, and whoever shall hear,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. And NMB is a very collaborative group. As you just said, you guys all contribute. Now, most of the band, particularly you and Mike, work with Neil on a ton of his solo prog albums as well. What's different in the approach between an NMB record and a Neil solo record?
Well, if I use the same analogy I did with the building blocks,
Mm,
I think the big difference was most of the time we were all working on Neil's building blocks
mm,
rather than a combination
mm,
of different things that you can contribute to because you have that freedom with regard to what you're trying to build. Neil kind of sat and did all that first.
mm,
What Mike and I brought to it was from more of a producer's standpoint.
mm,
Oh, I hear it like this, or what about putting this here? And I think this should be later in the album, or um, with this, we still don't really have a good intro here. So then we might write that on the spot, like we did that in one, the intro to the creation we wrote
mm,
kind of right on the spot because what he originally had wasn't didn't seem like the right thing. So yeah, ultimately all the way up to where the vocals start, we kind of improvised all of that
mm,
on the creation. That's an example. And then, a lot of that were pieces that I brought from my demos. And like where Phil Kagi does his solo was over a section that I had on a demo.
mm,
We've contributed bits and pieces. I wrote a bunch of lyrics on one, but that's because of the proximity I had at the time because Neil was still building his demos and working on guitar and he gave me his lyric notebook and I was trying to fill in the blanks as we were going. I was just throwing out ideas, but he seemed to really connect with them.
mm,
So I ended up writing a bunch of stuff on one. But, subsequently as it goes, like question mark, he had already kind of laid out
mm,
the whole thing. Um, and we just kind of come in and didn't really find that it needed a lot.
mm,
I think I wrote one little passage toward just before the Temple of the Living God uh, to get him from one key to another.
mm,
We were struggling with the transition, and I came up with an
mm,
idea that worked, and we used it. Um, so that's the big difference.
mm.
The from the grand experiment forward.
Yeah.
versus everything before that. He and I collaborated later on, like in Momentum
Mm,
on Thoughts Part 5, for instance, with
mm,
stuff we both threw into the mix
mm,
that we had. It was a true collaboration.
mm.
So that was beginning to happen more at that point. Um, and then we got Bill and Eric and
Yeah.
moved, kept going. So,
Now, I was lucky enough to catch you guys live on the Innocence and Danger tour. And traditionally, you hit the road, you play the new record in its entirety as a story. Will there be time for a US tour behind Lift?
oh well, yeah, we're trying to figure out the window of
Mm,
opportunity. But I think it's pretty likely that it'll happen this year.
mm,
Um, it may be later, but we're still trying to figure out how, how we're going to do it. Um, and then there's Morse Fest, because he's going to want to, he's going to want to do it at Morse Fest. So, there's that. And, it's just a lot of sort of pre-planning
Yeah.
and, it's just we haven't solidified anything at this point. So
Mm,
it's an ongoing process, but I think that there's a likelihood because that's why we're doing this.
yeah.
We have a process because we want to make it happen. So
Mm. Yeah. And let's kind of go back a little bit in your history. When you were starting out, was progressive rock kind of your preference, or was that something that sort of developed along with your playing later on?
oh no, I grew up, listening to music probably as early as 1967, 68,
Mm,
and Strawberry Fields Forever and
mm,
uh, Beatles. There were records in the house: Beatles,
yeah,
Beach Boys, Love and Spoonful, Rolling Stones, um, from my siblings, that
mm,
were somewhat older than me. And yeah, I heard that kind of stuff. And then my sister, who was the closest age to me, was really into like Bobby Sherman and David Cassidy. So I got endless amounts of that. Donny Osmond. Oh my God. So it was funny. I think it was when I heard Question by the Moody Blues
mm,
was like my first real like connection to anything progressive rock.
mm,
And I had to have that record
mm,
and I got it. And I started listening to the Moody Blues. And then there was, of course, Roundabout, which I'd hear on the radio. And every time that came on, I just had I just gravitated naturally to those sounds and that music. It wasn't an effort to do it. It's what really attracted me.
mm,
I don't know why. It just was natural.
mm,
So I kind of followed that. And then, Kansas came out, Queen came out, Styx was,
mm,
doing their stuff. Equinox was a fantastic album. I love that album.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I just grew up through the thick of it all. And then ultimately Genesis, as well as Steve Hackett. So like I kind of discovered both Genesis and Steve Hackett, like Voyage of the Acolyte, at the same time.
mm,
Seconds Out and Voyage of the Acolyte were two records a friend of mine kept turning me on to. So
mm,
I got into those. And then along came Brand X, Bill Bruford Band, And meanwhile, yes, the Moody Blues were still doing their thing or whatever. And then Rush,
mm.
there's Rush in the mix. And as the 80s went on, it was into a lot of the 80s stuff like Missing Persons and
Yeah.
Level 42 and then yes, and Genesis Rush all just kind of ruled in
Mm,
the 80s and got to see all those great shows and yeah, so
mm,
yeah, that was kind of what I gravitated towards. As I got older, I started appreciating a lot more of the Deep Purple and Alice Cooper
mm,
and more of the hard rock that
yeah.
I didn't listen to that much in the 80s.
Mm.
Even some of the, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Joe
Mm.
Bonamassa kind of stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, which back then, see, as a kid, I would have never wanted to listen to that. I mean, I wouldn't. I just didn't interest me.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it. It's like I hear Moody Blues or Yes, and I was like, oh yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It,
that's where it came from.
it grows with you. And you've done some solo work, you've done projects outside of, this Neal Morse sphere. Do you have anything else on the calendar for 2026?
Well, well, yeah, no, we're going. I'm going to London in a couple of weeks for Morris Fest.
Hmm.
I'm taking my wife, so kind of making a London vacation out of it. No, other than that, I'm booked solid here in around where I live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm booked solid at least all the way up into to June. June, July are always really slow months
Mhm.
for gigs. Still manage to play a few times a month, but it slows way down. See, right now I'm booked. I've been booked solid every weekend all the way through June, second week of June.
Oh, that's great.
And then,
Well,
of course, if the tour,
yeah,
at some point
hopefully.
takes off, there'll be that. So yeah.
Well, we've been spending some time here with Randy George. The band is NMB. The record is called Lift. It's simply amazing. I can't say enough about how it affected me listening to it. It's out everywhere on February 27th, and hopefully we'll catch you guys live some point this year. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, thanks.